Hi, welcome to my video blog on life coaching. My name is Ed Walsh. Thanks for coming by today. Today I thought I'd tell you a story. It's a story that I use in my coaching profession from time to time. I tell my clients a story, and it's a truly inspiring story. It gets people fired up and motivated, and hopefully you can use it yourself. It's a story of perseverance, of overcoming significant odds. It's a story of a young man that chased his dream, found it, and in doing so not only changed his life significantly, but changed the world that we live in. And that's an expression that gets thrown around an awful lot. People say, "Oh, so and so changed the world," and it's kind of lost its luster with time. But this is a case where this young man literally changed the world in three major areas. The first is that he changed the way society views a certain segment of our society. He's changed the way that segment of society views themselves. And if you're a U.S. taxpayer, the third way he's changed the world is that he has saved you billions with a B dollars so far. And the savings go on and on and on and will continue to go on forever. And the irony of it all is that you've probably never heard his name, and you probably don't even know his story. So let's tell it. The year is 1960. 18-year-old Ed Roberts applies for college and gets accepted at the University of California, Berkeley. A short time later, the college notifies him and tells him they've changed their mind, that they don't want him as a student any longer. They found out that Ed Roberts has a severe disability. He came into contact with polio as a child. He's completely paralyzed from the neck down. In fact, he can't breathe on his own. He sleeps in an iron lung at nighttime. He sometimes uses the iron lung during the day, but when he's not in the iron lung, he uses a wheelchair, of course. And then he needs assistance with breathing, so he will hold an air hose in his mouth, hold it in his teeth, and let oxygen get pushed into his body that way. He's quite severely disabled. There's no denying this, but his brain works just fine. He can think, he can reason, he can run his own life. He can certainly attend school. They just don't want him. As a matter of fact, the dean, when discussing Ed's situation, said, and I quote, "We tried cripples here before and it didn't work," unquote. I think I'm just going to let that statement speak for itself and move on. As incredible as it sounds, at the age of 18, Ed was already a seasoned pro at fighting for his rights to get an education. He had attended high school using the iron lung and a wheelchair. And he had enough credits to graduate high school, but the school informed him just before graduation that he would not be receiving an actual diploma, that he hadn't met the requirements for driver's ed or gym, and they just weren't going to give him a real diploma. And that's just so ridiculous that, Ed fought that, and he won, as you would expect. And having had that one victory under his belt, he now saw a new problem arise in his life, a life that was already, to be quite honest, not overly dramatic, probably difficult enough without any more aggravation added to it. So Ed turned to the California Department of Rehabilitation. Every state in the country has a division of their state government, I should say, that does just this. It's a Department of Rehabilitation, and their sole reason for existing is to help people become gainfully employed, either through help with education, like in Ed's case, or they can help with job training or job retraining if you're injured on the job and you cannot longer do this type of physical labor or what have you. They can retrain you for something else. They help with job placement, things like that. This is what they do. This is all they do. After meeting with Ed, the caseworker informs him that he's too disabled to ever be gainfully employed, and they won't help him either. So if I can real quickly, let's recap. The high school won't give him a diploma, but then ends up having to. The college accepts him and then turns around and changes their mind when they learn about his situation. They don't want anything to do with him. The dean of the college insults him and calls him a cripple. The State Department of Rehabilitation, whose job it is to help him, won't help him. Where does he turn now? What kind of resources does an 18-year-old kid have? He takes the last avenue. That's his only chance, really. He turns to a lawyer, and they threaten a lawsuit. And I'm sure the legal papers were flying back and forth between the two. And the lawyer learns an important lesson, of course, and that is that this case will probably be won in the public view and not so much in a courtroom. So he brings the case public and notifies the newspapers and the local TV stations about the situation and how this kid's been treated by the college. And of course, it's a public relations fiasco. The college is publicly humiliated, as they should be. And they do give in, but not without one final zing. They make a proposal to Ed, and it's a proposal that says yes, but what they were really saying was no, and here was their proposal. You can live on campus, but I should say you can attend school, but you cannot live on campus because the iron lung will not fit through the doorway of the dormitory, and even if it does, we're not sure if the dormitory's floors are strong enough to hold an 800-pound iron lung. And of course, they couldn't widen a doorway or speak to an engineer for an afternoon. You'd see if the place is strong enough to hold it, because that's asking an awful lot. They've done absolutely nothing to help this kid so far, and they're staying consistent, aren't they? So Ed knows he can't commute to school. He lives very far from the college, and this is just not a physical possibility, which the college knew, of course. They were saying yes, but what they were really meaning was no. They were just trying to find another way to get rid of him. But he had another idea, and it was simply this. Their proposal back was that instead of living in the dormitory and causing all kinds of trouble for the school, he would live in the infirmary. And by now, there were a number of other students that have heard about his situation in the media, people with disabilities that were also students, and they all joined in and said, and there were about a dozen of them, they said, we'll all live together. We'll live with Ed in the infirmary, just dedicate one floor of the infirmary to us. And the only thing we ask is that you decorate it to look like a dormitory and not like we're living inside of a hospital. And so the college really didn't have any choice but to say yes. And they said yes, and everybody got to go to school, and Ed got to live on campus, just like anybody else, just like he wanted from the very beginning. And a few years later, he got his Bachelor's of Science in philosophy. And if the story ended there, you'd say, well, good for him. He had a goal, he had a dream, he saw it through, and good for him. But the story's only just beginning. You see, 2 years after getting his bachelor's, Ed got his master's in philosophy at the same school, the University of California, Berkeley. And he immediately enrolled in the PhD program, but he never really got a chance to get his PhD because he was too busy being a professor of philosophy at the University of California, Berkeley. And his courses were so full, there were waiting lists to get in. And the one person that the college wouldn't help, the one person who wasn't worth widening a doorway or speaking to an engineer for an afternoon, now became a major asset for the college, bringing in funding, of course, in tuition. And if the story ended there, you'd say, well, I guess he made something of his life, and good for him. But let's peel the onion back another layer. In 1976, the governor of California appointed Ed Roberts to be the director of the California Department of Rehabilitation, the very same department that 16 years earlier wanted nothing to do with him, told him he was too disabled to ever be gainfully employed, and turned their backs and walked away. He is now running the show there. And if the story ended there, you would say, Wow. I guess he really showed a lot of people. But the story goes on. Let's peel the onion back another layer. Berkeley, California became, and is to this very day, one of the most wheelchair accessible and disability friendly cities, not in California, not on the West Coast, not in the United States of America, but in the world. There are people who visit Berkeley, California from all four corners of the world for this reason only. And that's not opinion, that is fact. And the reason why that city is like it is because of Ed Roberts and a few other disability advocates who wouldn't take no for an answer. And if the story ended there, you would say, wow, incredible. This kid had so much against him, and look what he did. But there's one more layer, and it's a very large layer, and it's a layer that affects you personally. Today, hundreds of thousands of U.S. citizens, people with disabilities, can live in their homes, have caregivers come in an hour or two here or there, whatever they need, to help them with whatever they need. Instead of being institutionalized and pushed aside and forgotten with a life of just mere existence in a long-term care facility, like they were back in the early 1960s, before Ed Roberts' situation came to be. These very people live in their homes today and save you billions of dollars. And this whole independent living philosophy was started by the very first Center for Independent Living in Berkeley, California in the early 1970s. All again because of Ed Roberts. As a matter of fact, at one point he was the executive director of the Center for Independent Living. And today, centers like this are in every state in the country. Every state has at least 3 or 4 or 5, depending on the size of the population. And this independent living philosophy doesn't end at the US border. It has circumvented the globe. Millions of people have been affected by one kid that had a dream and had the guts to chase his dream. When they pushed him into a corner, he came out fighting. He didn't ask for this battle. They brought it to him. But look at what he did. And this is the lesson that I pass on to you today. It's the very same lesson that I pass on to the people that I coach. And it's simply that. Push yourself into a corner just like Ed Roberts was. Don't accept anything but what you want in your life. Whatever your goal is, that's your goal. And let success be your only option. Don't capitulate. Don't negotiate. Fight for what's yours. Stick up for yourself. Today, there's a campus on the University of California, Berkeley, named in his honor. And on that campus, there's a building named the Ed Roberts Building. And this building is said to be the most disability-friendly building in the world. You can visit it on YouTube. You can look it up, the Ed Roberts campus, if you'd like to learn more about it. He died young. He died 56 years old. A severe disability like that takes its toll on you, but his life was not in vain. And he achieved greatness, all by sticking up for himself and fighting for what's rightfully his. And there's your lesson for the day. One person can make a big difference, whether it's in this world or whether it's in your life. My name is Ed Walsh. Thanks for stopping by. Take care.